Hey everybody, this is King Kong Knights 100, and today I wanted to give my thoughts on the new Skull Island teaser that was released by Legendary for the new Kong anime, which is coming out in June of next month. Now for those who may not know, there is in fact a new show coming out for Kong in the Monsterverse called Skull Island. It's set in the 90s and it follows a group of characters that gets shipwrecked onto the island. So far we don't really know too much about the plot, but we do know where it fits in the Monsterverse timeline and what to expect. So I do have a lot I wanted to dive into here, but before we get into all that, I'm just going to give some thoughts through a trailer breakdown first. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The Skull Island teaser starts off with a man's narration as he asks,
"You know what they called that place? Skull Island."
He has a bit of a funky accent, which definitely sounds more southern, and it leads me to believe that this guy may take up the Packard role we saw in Kong Skull Island. Since he seems to have a lot of the intel about the island, even presenting the other characters with a map, it lends some credence to the idea that he is the guy that's calling the shots on this mission. And the way that he's framed here, plus like his confidence and his stature, it definitely gives off those Packard vibes. You get some establishing shots of the island with a very, very nice looking, vibrant sunset, and immediately we can kind of tell that this is not the same Skull Island we saw in 2017. Now don't get me wrong, canonically this is Skull Island, but it just looks a lot more different, and you know, it doesn't really look or feel like the Skull Island we saw in Kong Skull Island. So I'll talk about this a lot more later on in the video, but the terrain, you know, it definitely looks a lot more different. I love the spikes of land that are just like jutting out of the ground, because it's definitely like more along the lines of the 2005 Skull Island, which is what I was hoping to see out of the Monsterverse Skull Island. So that is awesome. There's a massive creature shown in the waters below, and we see a man ominously just like watching in the foreground. And before anything happens, you know, a massive octopus squid monster just shoots out into the air and it destroys this helicopter. And one thing of note is that this could be a different kind of Mire squid, since the one we saw in Kong Skull Island is orange and reddish in terms of color, and this one is kind of blue. So this could be a different kind, or it could just be like a different creature entirely. The man watching in the foreground leads me to believe one of two things. So one is that this is just like, you know, the guy who's leading the charge and is going to the island for malicious intentions. So he probably knew the helicopter would crash or get attacked, and he was simply just testing the waters. No pun intended. Or it seems like he could be a person who's like part of the mission, and they're looking at their potential rescue helicopter getting clapped out the sky. So we also get a shot of this girl looking in utter horror, and it's pretty cool framing. Again, very reminiscent of Packard in Kong Skull Island. So hey, maybe she's the one who can make a turn to the crazy side like Packard did due to her fleet like continuously getting wiped out. Who knows? We get a shot of this dude being pulled into a sand trap by this crab monster thing. You know, it's a pretty alright design, but honestly, I don't really care too much about it. If anything, it seems a little bit too vibrant in terms of color, but honestly, I don't care too much about it at the moment. In contrast, we get a shot of this weird humanoid reptilian monster in a dark area that seems like a cave or near a campfire. I don't know what this thing is, but I fucking love it. It's so badass. It really reminds me of some kind of skinwalker or Wendigo looking creature. Better yet, it reminds me of the cave monsters from The Descent, which are just so incredibly eerie. And I also really like the back spikes on this thing. This one's awesome. One of my favorite Monsterverse designs for sure. There's two shots of this weird dog-looking creature thing and a girl riding it. So it seems like this is going to be the little animal companion to the character. And honestly, every time I see this thing's face, I'm just like, why'd they go with that? It looks like a pug and is so large, yet is the most unthreatening thing I could imagine. I feel like if it looked more like a wolf or something, it would be cool. But this is just a really weird, chubby-faced creature that worries me they're going to try to make it overly cute or something. I think it's the underbite. It's the fucking underbite that's throwing me off. It's alright, I guess, but like, I don't know, man. I think the fact that this girl is riding on top of this creature brings back memories of Kong the Animated Series with Lua, who rode atop Chondar, which was like a saber-toothed creature monster thing. I know we heard some rumors regarding Godzilla x Kong the New Empire that we'd see some iwi riding Dugs around the Hollow Earth, so maybe this is like a precursor to that idea, or maybe this is like Legendary warming up the audience to that idea. I also like the background here. I think the mountains and clouds look really, really cool. It looks a lot like something you'd see out of 2005's Skull Island and the concept art surrounding that movie. There's another shot of this kid running away from a massive crocodile-looking monster, and this is another home run. I really love this kind of creature, and these were the kinds of monsters I wanted to see throughout Kong Skull Island. So this lizard crocodile-looking monster is a certified badass. The background, it also seems to have the lighter colored greens that we once saw in Kong the Animated Series. And the way they shade the backgrounds is also just like KTAS, and even like the 1933 and 2005 Skull Islands. You know, what I mean is that, like, in 1933, right, the way they shaded the jungle environments through matte paintings was done intentionally. Like, in the main background, they would divide that up by 3, so that the first layer was darker, second was lighter, and the third was darker. Either that, or it's like the other way around, I forget. But the point of that was, like, to that approach, is that it added a lot of depth to the environment, and it made it feel more, like, lived in, I guess, or more like a jungle. And yeah, that was also the approach to the jungle backgrounds that were done in 2005 and in KTAS. And it seems to be following suit here with this animated show, which is great. It also doesn't make the island look that depressing when you're watching it. It just, again, it feels livelier. It feels like this is actually a jungle, and, like, you know, it feels lived in. So, yeah, it's a good thing to strike that healthy balance of, like, visually appealing and not dark and depressing. It's dark and depressing when it needs to be, but it's also bright and vibrant when the scene calls for it. So we see a girl swinging off vines like fucking Tarzan or Spider-Man or something, and she, like, wraps herself around a guy and snaps his neck. This is literally like a Spider-Man attack I've seen in the Insomniac games. But, I really hope she didn't kill this guy. It looks like she knocked him out or something, but I wouldn't be surprised if she did end up killing him. But, yeah, this looks like the same girl who is riding the dog creature, and while initially I would think she's an Iwi, she's wearing a uniform. So that leads me to believe she probably knows Aaron Brooks, who may still be on the island since both Bertha Kong and this show is taking place within the 90s. Because that does look like a Monarch uniform or something. But I am seeing the same kind of Iwi outfit that Gia had on in GVK, like underneath that jacket. So maybe this girl is an Iwi who's, like, taken prisoner or something, because she also has handcuffs on her wrists, which is really weird. I don't know what could be happening here, but she's attacking those people for a reason, and for someone who can fight like that, they need to have grown up on the island to know the terrain like that and be able to use it to their advantage. So, I don't know, I also need to brush up on Birth of Kong to recall if that uniform is the same or not, but I doubt it is. But yeah, this girl, she seems like a badass though. We also see some bird monster who looks like a mix of Rodan and the Quetzalcoatlus from Godzilla the series. So this one is dope, and I do hope to see more of it. Lastly, we get our golden shots of Kong, who roars at some people in the foreground. Not sure who or why he's roaring at them, but it is dope. Kong looks a lot more different. We know this is supposed to take place in the 90s, so Kong, you know, he's not exactly his 330-foot tall adult self, but he has his beard coming in, and he seems to have, like, a darker fur coat, more along the lines of black fur rather than brown. Now, KDM did mention animals like bears change the colors of their coats all the time, so maybe it's something like that, but it's weird. You know, it's really weird seeing Kong looking all dark here, and it's like, in the poster he's brown, so why is he, like, so dark in this shot? Maybe it's just, like, based on this shot, but, I don't know, maybe it's probably an inconsistency or something, or maybe this is just how he's gonna look, but something about this design just doesn't look like the Monsterverse Kong. It's fine, I guess, it's just really bland. Now, before we fully deep dive into my thoughts, there's also another teaser posted by KDM, so I'm gonna quickly go ahead and break that one down before we get into it. So this one starts off with the ending shot of teaser 1, which is Kong roaring at that person that we don't know. We see this dodo-looking creature running towards these two young people, and I think the one in the orange is the dude who was almost killed by the crab monster. Then that weird pug creature falls out the damn sky, using its fat ass to crush the dodo bird. So dodos once again face the threat of extinction, even on Skull Island. But we get another shot of that pug dog thing, and man, I don't really like this one. It just looks like it's trying too hard to be cute or something, and it's also, like, fucking ugly as hell. Not even in a way where creatures on Skull Island are supposed to look disgusting. Like, this one, it's trying to be cute, but it also looks like a damn abomination. Basically like me. The two dudes ask who that girl is, since we saw the same one riding on the pug previously, and she just says,
"We need to run, now!"
So, she speaks English really well, and doesn't seem to be related to the Iwi at all. But hey, there's a chance she knew English from Aaron, since Otto from Birth of Kong did as well. And she does have what seems to be Gia's outfit, as I mentioned earlier, so maybe she really is an Iwi, because again, she also knows the environment, she's made connections with this dog creature thing, so yeah, I am willing to bet that she is probably an Iwi. Also, whatever happened to that kid Otto from Birth of Kong? We never really heard from him again. Anyways, here's a cool shot. So Kong is in some foggy area of the island, and he's swinging off what looks like a crane, but it could just be a ship in the foreground. I don't know. There's something on the bottom right, and it looks like a human because, like, I clearly see an arm, but it also looks too thick to be a human's. So something tells me that this is like that ugly ass pug thing because I also see ears sticking out. Almost like it's looking up at Kong or hiding from Kong or something. So with how the dialogue is flowing, it seems like they're trying to run from Kong. So I don't know why the teaser would paint Kong out to be like the bad guy or something, but I was thinking about it, and it would kind of be badass to see Kong actively pursuing our crew throughout the story. Almost like he's the big bad, or maybe he's worried about what these guys are gonna, maybe he's worried about the fact that these guys might start some shit on his island like Packard did, so he's trying to stop them while he's ahead. That's just an idea. They're probably not going to go with that, and it doesn't really match up that well with Kong's character since he's usually like the hero, but yeah, it would be a nice turn of events seeing him be the one who they're running from throughout the whole story. And after what happened with Packard, like, I don't see that being completely out there. So yeah, but that's just an idea. Here's a shot of these dudes in a cave with the entrance caving in. I don't know what the fuck is happening here. There's too much sand to really see. We see that ugly-ass pug again attack two people through dust. So this seems like the final battle or something, because there are also two random people I don't remember seeing in the other teasers, but maybe this is like the enemy. I mean, maybe this is the dude we saw in the beginning of the first teaser, and these are like his henchmen. We also see a dude dodging the crab monster again. Some guy shooting at a massive ant creature, which seems to have a rock on top of it to naturally blend into environments, which is cool because this seems like those ant creatures that Hank Marlowe spoke of in Kong Skull Island. And then we end on the shot with that bird creature again, and that pretty much wraps up teaser number 2. So, now that we've unpacked all those teasers, what are my thoughts? Well, strap in folks, I do want to warn you, I'm not the most hyped about this show, so like a lot of what I'm going to say may not be as positive as you'd like. But we can first start out with what I do like. So the art style. Art style is one of the more divisive things I've been noticing about this show so far. Some people love it, other people hate it, and I'm neither here or there. You know, pretty much just like split down the middle. It's a bit too simplistic at certain points, like sometimes the lighting looks a bit flat or the characters just don't have too much detail, but I especially feel that way for Kong. But then again, there are shots in the beginning that do look stunning, like the sunset with the squid attack, or like the jungle exteriors when we see that girl attacking the guys. I think some of it shines really well, and other times it falls flat. But I did grow up on KTAS, so I'm not that worried about it. I just hope it's appealing in some way. I've been hearing a lot of positive things about the characters. I believe KDM spoke about this and said that the characters are easily the best part about the show. So hearing that gives me some hope, because this group has a lot of potential to be super entertaining and well written. I wanted to just see some like nice emotions come out of this crew, and I'm hoping this show really accomplishes that. Now there are a lot of really, really cool monsters. That Wendigo looking one in particular is very exciting for me, as those are the kinds of creatures I would have loved to have seen in the Monsterverse Skull Island back in 2017. The Croc monster is also fantastic, and in the poster, there is a really, really cool Skullcrawler design. I'm hoping this is more what the adult Titan Skullcrawlers look like, because you know, the jagged bone spikes on its back really looks amazing. That's pretty much all I have to say, though, about the show so far in terms of positive aspects. So, let's get into why I'm not completely excited for the show just yet, at least not as excited as I am about the Godzilla show that's coming out. So, the main issue I have with this show right now is that it seems really, really fucking pointless. Honestly, just think about it for a second. In terms of the Monsterverse timeline, what is the point of this show? Skull Island is gone now. It's uninhabitable, and Kong's new home is the Hollow Earth. We already got Kong Skull Island, Birth of Kong, and Kingdom Kong to explore Skull Island. In all 3 iterations of those stories, Skull Island was bland. The creatures just did not seem as interesting as it could have been, and instead of badass titans and like more reptilian kaiju, we just got like scurr buffaloes or small spiders, small skull crawlers. It was just bland. The landscape also wasn't nearly as interesting as 2005 Skull Island, as it was just literally Vietnam. Now, I was never a fan of the Monsterverse Skull Island. It never looked as creative as the other Skull Islands we've got in the past, and this was just the one chance to nail Skull Island for the Monsterverse. Instead of badass titans of all sizes, we just got a bland terrain and a bland gallery of monsters. So this show seems like it's trying to redeem Skull Island. Now, don't get me wrong, the show redeeming Skull Island would be cool, but the only issue with that is timing and relevance. They really fucked up with the timing of this show. If it was released before King of the Monsters or GVK, that's fine, but now it just has no relevance. We already know what Adult Kong turns out as, and like what the island's fate is, so what is the point? I mean, it could possibly work, but the island isn't interesting enough. If this was about an adult Kong fighting off Titans, that would be different. This show right now just seems to be about a teenage Kong fighting off megafauna. We just got adult Kong, and it would be a shame to keep going back in time and seeing baby Kong and young Kong, who is pretty uninteresting to watch. Now, I'm not saying prequel stories aren't possible or that they don't work. Smallville was a great prequel series done right. You know, if the characters are good, as is the monster action, then that would be fantastic. That's all you really need with these films and shows. But with the topic we're dealing with specifically, like Skull Island, the selling point of the show, as well as Kong himself, there's a lot we already know about it now, which just takes a lot of the mystique out of the show. Titans are always way cooler than megafauna, and one of my concerns is that we're gonna have really cool creatures, but they'll only be about as large as a human, or at least, you know, like 20, 30 feet, whatever. You know, it's still very small in comparison to King Kong. A Jurassic Park raptor kitchen scene would be kind of cool to do with like death jackals or something, but at the end of the day, we're here for Kong. So what does Kong have to fight that's actually entertaining and not stale or boring? Why would we really care about any of the small megafauna action if there isn't any threatening large rogues for Kong to fight? See, I want to see Kong fight actual Titans. So, who actually gives a fuck about Skull Island anymore now that the Hollow Earth is a thing? This show could possibly be good if there are a ton of Titans all over Skull Island that Kong has to fight, but Kong also has to be a Titan to make it interesting. It seems like since it takes place in the 90s, Kong will be around 200 feet or so, since that is how large he was back in Birth of Kong, but he needs to be constantly fighting Titans as large and larger than he is to make the show interesting, as well as multiple Titans at once. I want the creativity and energy of past Kong fights in films and shows that have showed what a beast he is. If we're going to get a small show that's like a typical like 25 to 45 minute 6 to 8 episode per season count, it would be pretty harmless and I guess a cool exploration of the island. But what angers me is the idea of what this show could have been, which I'll talk about in a second. So it's about the missed potential. So Skull Island having like a Titan in it or many on it would be great, but Kong would also need to be a beast of a Titan to make it interesting. It can be cool seeing his reaction to the Great Awakening and him fighting off and hunting Titans, but it doesn't seem they're going with that route. You know, if they showed like his battle with Camazotz or something, that would be cool too as well, to see like how he ends up in the dome. But again, it seems like this isn't going for what, you know, modern MonsterVerse era is going for. It's going for like what? It's going towards the Kong Skull Island days. It's going towards like what was Skull Island, you know, what was it in the past, and I'm just not interested in it. That kind of brings me to an issue with the MonsterVerse in general, and that's the fact that we keep going back in time and we just cannot stick to the modern day. There are way too many time skips for me to really care about the characters or the story. It's the same as the whole Origins and Titan rivalry thing. Like, who cares if it's all in the past? They keep doing time skips for the present day, and they love to stay hung up on the past like it was ever interesting. And I just think, like, the MonsterVerse relies far too much on past events for world building. I mean, this has been a thing since the very start. Mutos were an ancient rivalry. Ghidorah was an ancient rivalry. Kong is an ancient rivalry. This new threat in GXK seems like an ancient rivalry. It's far too stale at this point, and it doesn't seem like many people care about that. Things between Godzilla and Ghidorah, as well as Godzilla and Kong, never had to be an ancient rivalry. It never had to, you know, if anything, like, those new threats being brand new to Godzilla would have been far more intriguing, seeing how he actually goes about both of them. Rather than getting a modern day show that actually pushes the narrative of the MonsterVerse forward, it instead is all just a waste of time. It's literally rewinding a clock just to see what happened in the past that's not going to matter in the future. It really is not. It just seems like a waste of time, to be honest. And rather than a show where we see an adult Kong fighting Titans, or a show about him fitting into his role in the Hollow Earth, which I doubt Godzilla x Kong will cover much of, it's just, you know, instead like, hey, let's cover the most boring and uninteresting part about this series, young Kong. So this constant pattern that Legendary has been doing with the MonsterVerse, where they make holes in the plot of each film and use other media like comics or games to fill them in, is so fucking lazy. Anybody could make a series like that. What takes more effort is keeping everything near the same timeline, all modern day, little to no time skips, and have every show or film or comic push the narrative forward in some way. Kong Skull Island was our shot at exploring the damn island and making it interesting. Birth of Kong was as well, and they botched those two attempts. Kingdom Kong is the only MonsterVerse comic I feel actually pushes the narrative of the island and Kong forward. The reason I'm excited about the Godzilla show is mainly because of the monster action. Seeing the 2014 design again and a Godzilla that can fight off a bunch of Titans is exciting. We can also see a Godzilla at full power without any plot contrivances weakening him or the other monsters, hopefully. Part of me doubts we will because, you know, Toho, but we'll see what happens. But because Legendary has been killing it with their new Titans lately, I'm really excited to see what kinds of monsters Godzilla can go up against. Everything from the King of the Monster era onwards has been a huge step from the shitty Mutos. So the new Titans always look cool, plus I really want to see Amulek again, please give us Amulek. But I have a reason to be excited about the Godzilla show, even though the fact that it's still in the 2014 era is a bit annoying to me. But it's still just so much closer to modern day, and I'm excited mainly for like the action and the Titans. But as for this Kong show, there's no reason to care about Skull Island since we know its fate. And there's no reason to care about Kong since we know where he ends up in the future, plus the fact that this Kong is only going to be like 200 feet tall. So the reason this entire show upsets me is because it's valuable time and man-hours being wasted on an uninteresting part of Kong's life in the story. So what would have been a better kind of show? Well, here's my proposal. This show should have primarily been about a fully grown adult Kong engaging in Titan fights. Have it cover everything from The Great Awakening to an hour special on Kingdom Kong, maybe where we see Camazotz. That should be like the first few episodes, and then cover where Kong is left after GVK, and let's see him settling into his role in the Hollow Earth. Because again, I guarantee Godzilla X Kong is gonna just gloss over that, or we're not gonna see enough of it. Kong in general in the Monsterverse has been insanely underutilized. We never really see how he reacts to The Great Awakening, and this would be the show to see that. This is where we could get those scenes of him fighting Titans and hunting, which the novel had described but we never actually saw. Kingdom Kong. I would love to see Camazotz show up in a live show. You all know how much I love Camazotz, but like, he really does deserve like on-screen debuts, not only in the film but also in a show. Even if it's like a small adaptation of the comic or of the fight that we got, it's a turning point in the Monsterverse, so it at least deserves to show up on screen somehow. Even if like they gloss over it, I would still love to see what happened right after. Like, what if we got a disaster episode where Skull Island just begins to collapse? Like, imagine if like tsunamis and the storm just worsens, and like after Camazotz's defeat, it just all starts going to shit. I mean, how cool would it be seeing Kong do everything he can to prevent the tsunami? He goes into the Hollow Earth pockets and he tries like shifting a tectonic plate, or some kind of like emotional scene where we have to see him use his strength and actually save the island. At least don't make him a complete failure. At least show like, oh, he like stopped a tsunami all by himself. Oh, he went into this area of the Hollow Earth, or not Hollow Earth, but like the pocket of the Hollow Earth, and he went under Skull Island and he literally used all his strength and he lifted this plate, and it was enough to the point where it actually saved the island from drowning. That would be just amazing. And it's not like saying that makes him stronger than Godzilla, because we do know how strong Godzilla is, but this is just giving Kong more of those strength feats and durability feats, and really showing why he is in canon the second strongest Titan in the Monsterverse according to the novel. If we can get some scenes like that, that would just do wonders for Kong and who he is as a character. Like, what if we also got scenes of him saving the Iwi all around the island and bringing them to the base where Monarch begins to evacuate them, which we see at the end of Kingdom Kong? I think like that would be awesome. What about like, how was Kong able to connect to Eileen? Like, how did she become the Kong Whisperer? How did she even form her relationship with Gia? We need to see all of that. Like, there is so much they could do with those characters, and those characters, right? Nathan, Eileen, Gia, they should have actually spearheaded the show and helped advance the plot while also, you know, enhancing GVK and giving us a reason to be more connected to those people as characters. And how the fuck did the dome end up there? Like, I would love to see how Monarch even built it around Kong, how they convinced him to go inside, at what point did Kong decide, okay, I don't have to defend the island anymore since everybody is safe? Like, I hate that. So far, it seems like Kong is the laziest Titan, because we can't even tell, like, if he attempted to save any Iwi or help Godzilla with Ghidorah. Like, we need an actual reason as to why he was so preoccupied. It was GVK's job to show Kong constantly in battle, but they just didn't give a fuck, and they made Kong look like the laziest bastard I've ever seen. They even confirmed he's overweight in GVK, so like, why is Godzilla low-powered in GVK? Why is Kong, like, fat in the film? Like, I don't get it. But, so this show would be like the perfect point to touch a little bit on the past, while also bringing us into the present as we would then see how Kong has been living in the Hollow Earth. Unless Season 2 of the show covers that, because I did hear Season 2 is currently fully written, I think this would be the perfect time to do it with how fresh the Hollow Earth is in everyone's minds, especially with like the GXK teaser. And yeah, Godzilla x Kong needs to spend a lot of time on Kong himself to flesh him out, but I doubt they'll do that. I really doubt it. And I also like doubt they're gonna give Kong a lot of awesome feats or something, because like, you know, hearing like things about the film just it's not working in his favor so far, but who knows. So I'm not gonna lie, I just got done editing most of this video, but I had this great idea about the treatment that we were talking about for this like disaster episode. But could you guys imagine seeing an entire episode dedicated to Kong showing why he's a true king? Like, what makes him so humanizing is his compassion. In this disaster episode right after Kingdom Kong, how great would it be seeing Kong first saving all of the iwi, and throughout the episode we see Kong using all of his strength to save the island from dropping off the face of the earth, which could potentially kill billions of people through massive tsunamis and earthquakes, right? Like, we can get a scene where he claps away like an oncoming tsunami, or like he smashes the ground hard enough to create a shockwave that stops it. They're gonna have to tease the tsunami like a lot, and it should be like this impending doom. And it's like, how the fucking Kong, just a massive gorilla titan, how could he stop a tsunami? And then he does it, and it's like, oh my god, phew, like, thank god that threat's over. And then earthquakes begin on the island, and that's when like Monarch and everyone's like, oh shit, Kong needs to like stop the island from falling. How is he gonna stop the island from falling? So we get this scene where like, you know, Kong, he needs to go under the island and use all of his strength to lift this tectonic plate back onto like the shelf it was originally on, or something like that. That would be so like emotionally powerful, and it's like, wow, it's a testament to Kong's strength. I think that'd be great. And like, that's only like, you know, that's halfway through the episode. So imagine this, like, we get a bit of a time skip about like a third or halfway through the episode where the island is still incredibly stormy and Kong just had this insane feat of strength. And yeah, we get an update where Monarch had nearly finished constructing this dome, and all the crew lives near it. And throughout the episode, Eileen and Gia, they try to convince Kong to enter the dome and just live in peace. Kong can show his compassion and his responsibility by refusing to enter the dome until he knows the entire island is safe. So instead of taking it easy, we see him disappear and just, you know, veer off into the stormy island. And we get like these scenes of him saving Skur buffaloes and maybe cool creatures like the Icarus tigers and these new ones like giant woolly mammoths or something. Just show him rounding up creatures on the entire island. Maybe he even like lights a torch or something, and, you know, he guides the creatures into the dome. And like, after all this, like, you know, this brave, endearing moment where, you know, Kong, like, he's been going on weeks on end trying to save all the creatures on the island. Imagine getting one moment where he goes out into the boneyard, now stormy and withered. He sees the skulls of his parents, especially like cracked and decaying and stuff because of the storm. This could be an incredibly emotional moment for Kong as he decides it's time to say goodbye. So he, you know, he gets on his knees and he holds his arms out and he caresses the skulls. And then he gets up with, imagine like this powerful, powerful score as he then gets up and he roars out into the air. And it's incredibly symbolic and it's metaphorical of him saying goodbye and letting go of his parents and the anger that has been fueling him all this time. We cut to the dome where most animals have entered, all except one, Kong. Eileen and Gia, they're worried, and they suddenly hear massive thudding sounds. And illuminated through the stormy flashes of lightning, Kong's silhouette grows larger and larger as he begins to enter the dome. He gets face to face with Gia and Eileen, and as Gia signs to him that it's okay, he can rest now, the island is safe, Kong just groans in sadness. You know, he feels like all of this was his fault. And Eileen signs to him that home is not the island, but its inhabitants are. The creatures within it, not the rock itself. So Kong, you know, he growls in understanding and he reaches out to grab both Eileen and Gia. He covers them and he begins to slowly enter the dome, and we can get a shot of his back as they begin entering this new environment as the doors to the old decaying one closes. And that's the end of the episode. Like, how great would that be? How powerful would that be? How amazing would that be for Kong's character development? Like, it would just be incredible. And then the next episode, you know, it catches us up on like the events of GVK, as now there should be like 2 episodes left in the show to then explore how Kong fits as the ruler of the Hollow Earth. And then the last one helps perfectly set up Godzilla x Kong. And then Godzilla, you know, the Godzilla show could also be written to have, like, the last 2 episodes explore what he's currently doing, teasing what's to come in GXK. That way we get plenty of time with both monsters, and letting GXK have more room to explore other ideas. That's my proposal on what the show should have been, because right now it just seems like a waste of time. And honestly, even same with the Godzilla show, you know, but at least, like, that one, you know, has a little bit more relevance and, like, guaranteed awesome kaiju action. So yeah, I personally, like, I'm not invested into this show, but I'm hoping it turns out great, and best case scenario, it's just got great characters and great kaiju action, it does Kong justice, and it's a great way to kill, you know, a couple hours. But, yeah. That's about it, everybody. Thank you for stopping by and watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. It is now summer, so for me, I'll be spending the next 2 months doing kaiju animations and making discussion videos. Thank you so much for nearly 21,000 subscribers. I cannot tell you how much it means to me, especially with, like, my lack of posts. I've been really surprised by the increasing subscriber count, so I want to let you know I'm hoping to polish up the Godzilla vs. Scylla animation. It is going to take forever to render, but I will find a way to get it done ASAP. Lots of big things are coming on the channel soon, so please stay posted, and thank you guys so much. I love you all. This is King Kong 19100 signing out, and until next time, bye-bye.